How I met my teacher. Now, this is just a story, and I'm just going to tell it like a story. So it's not too formal, and I wrote it during a time when we were having intense thunderstorms. So I'm just going to read you what I wrote and try to make it real. It's really hot here. Although thunderstorms are threatening outside, it's still almost 90. I'm in my little office. It's 1 a.m. I can't sleep from the heat, from the thunder, and so on. And I'm still very sad about the passing of the very venerable Tralik Rinpoche, whose death brings home to me once again the thought of impermanence, something I would do well to contemplate more often. I guess I was looking for Buddhism early on, way back in the 1950s. We would stay up late, smoke lots of cigarettes, drink coffee, and talk about Buddhism and topics like existentialism. It was all just intellectual talk, and I think we were so serious back then. I can remember when Coltrane's album My Favorite Things came out, with the incredible piano of McCoy Tyner. I was up all night at Harvey Armstrong's second-floor apartment on Packard Street in Ann Arbor, Michigan, listening to it over and over again. The title track is still one of my favorite tunes of all time, and I mean of all time. Of course, I love Coltrane on that tune, but it's the trance-like piano of Tyner that sealed the deal for me. And there was the all-day sesshin sitting zazen with Roshi Philip Kapleau. That was when I wanted to be a Zen practitioner. Or how about the Chinese monk that Margaret and I met in Woodstock, New York, when I went there to visit a fellow astrologer. We invited him to come and live at our center, flew him out there, but it just didn't work out. I wish I could tell you that story, but it's a little too crazy for here. In other words, I was looking early on for something like Buddhism, something that was more psychological, and above all, some kind of method to live life than I had received from former religions. I'm not by nature religious, or if I am, Mother Nature is my religion. And like so many of us back then who yearned to find a teacher, someone older, someone wiser than we were, someone we could trust, I tried about every guru or spiritual teacher that blew into town. Yet I was very, very fussy about who I would let teach me. It sure wasn't school teachers. I'd left school early, never even finishing high school, because I was just bored out of my mind and uninterested in the teachers I came across. I ended up spending many years studying black music and sitting at the feet of some of the great blues musicians, players like Muddy Waters, Junior Wells, Big Mama Thornton, Arthur Big Boy Crudup, Big Walter Horton, Little Walter, and many others. I was lucky enough to interview and spend time with them all, and more than just the music they shared, it was the light in their eyes, especially the practical wisdom of life that I saw in them that I liked. I was thirsty for that. Eventually I found the Tibetan Buddhists, who were as knowledgeable as the great blues players about life, but also taught a spiritual path that I could accept and follow. Unfortunately, the life choices or situations of many of the blues greats were not something I wanted to imitate, but their spirit and their common sense certainly was. With the Tibetan Buddhists, I found everything I needed in a single package. Today there are hundreds, if not thousands, of Tibetan monks here in this country who teach. I would have trouble knowing which ones were for me, but back then there were about none. Although I met the Dalai Lama early on, up close and personal even, it was not until I met the Venerable Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, the founder of Naropa Institute in Boulder, Colorado. It was then that I was satisfied that here was the real deal for me. Trungpa was certainly that. And although I loved Trungpa, his followers were too much into parties and drinking. As a musician, I was already way past that, and I yearned for something simple and without a lot of baggage. I found that when I met the Venerable Khenpo Kata Rinpoche, who, believe it or not, came to me in a dream. And I'm going to tell you that story, and hopefully I'll be tired and can go to bed. This was in 1983, and I was a businessman living where I live now in Big Rapids, Michigan. I was managing my company's Matrix Software. It's an astrology company that I founded and I still run today. My close friend James Coates phoned me to say that he had met a Tibetan teacher in Ann Arbor, and did I want to come to Ann Arbor and meet him? James always had some new guru. Not really, I said. I'm running a business. I'm married, kids, and I'm way past my guru hopping days. Well, I didn't put it quite like that, but that was how I looked at it. I wished him well and let it go at that. I've been there, done that. It was a day or so later, just before dawn, that I had a dream. It was one of those rare dreams that are more real than the dream of daily life we wake up to normally. In this dream, I was driving to Ann Arbor to meet this radiant, golden, oriental man, and I was as happy as I could imagine. And then I woke up. In the early morning light of October, as I sat up in bed, I was struck with sadness that my life had become such that realizing in the flesh such a dream like I had just had was seemingly no longer possible. My sense of myself just kind of went void, and life suddenly felt, empty. In that moment, I decided I wanted to go to Ann Arbor. I wanted to meet the man that my friend James told me of, and I dialed him up right away, even though I knew he was a late sleeper, always. And sure enough, sleepy-eyed James told me that it was too late, that the Rinpoche he had told me about was leaving that morning at 10 a.m., and it was already 7 a.m. by the time I called him. And the drive to Ann Arbor is 3 hours, so that was that. Well, I wasn't having any of it that morning. I told James I'm coming, no matter what, and that I'm not working that day, and I would be there as soon as possible. If I missed the Rinpoche, so be it. I was taking the day off, period. Then my wife, who had also had a similar dream, we grabbed our kids, including our 18-month-old daughter May, and with toothbrushes in hand, we were on the road. I drove as fast as I dared. James knew that we were coming, and even was waiting to flag us down at the end of the long driveway where the Rinpoche was staying, and he was going to guide us up there. The Lama was still there, and as I came up the driveway, I saw a handsome but young Tibetan man sitting outside on the front steps. Whoa, this was not the Tibetan of my dreams, so I was taken aback. Then James explained that this was not Rinpoche, but his translator, Nudrup Siring Burkar, who today is one of my dearest friends. We went inside and were received by Khenpo Kata Rinpoche, who was everything that my dreams spoke of and more. He was radiant, and we were radiant in his presence. The meeting was short because Rinpoche was soon on the road and driving to Columbus to another one of his centers. However, that meeting has never ended, and we were left in a transported state. And Margaret and I wandered around for days with some kind of spontaneous compassion that gradually faded as our, bad habits regained control of us again. If we wanted to live in that state, we'd have to do some practice. Today I'm still working with Khenpo Rinpoche, who is 90 years old. His teachings and guidance have made it possible for me to be somewhat stable and to be able to share thoughts like these with you.